From Oscar Steakhouse, inside the Plaza Hotel and Casino in Las Vegas, you're on the corner of Main Street. Welcome to the only podcast produced by and recorded in the Las Vegas Hotel Casino. From gaming to dining to entertainment to sports to Vegas history, this is the place to be for the inside scoop, because this is the place to be downtown. Now, here's Plaza CEO Jonathan Jossel.
We're live. Welcome, everybody. We're here on the corner of Main Street. We were live for that, right? Sorry. Okay. Very excited to be back here today. Gary, take it away.
Sure, yeah. Well, today's guest helped bring professional football to Las Vegas, and now he's leading with another major milestone, the arrival of Major League Baseball's Athletics. With over 3 decades with the Raiders, including serving as team president and overseeing their move to Allegiant Stadium, now he's focused on building a world-class ballpark on the Strip. Please welcome President of the Athletics, Marc Badain.
Thanks, Gary. Thanks, Jonathan. Good to see you.
Good to see you, Mark. Thank you. Did you do a good job with the introduction?
Perfect introduction.
You happy with that?
I didn't know where to go with Oakland Athletics or Sacramento Athletics, Las Vegas Athletics, so it's just Athletics.
Let's just leave it as it
Okay,
is, Gary.
perfect.
You did just fine.
You did good. We weren't. Well, I've been trying to have Mark Badain, Mr. Badain, on our podcast since 5 years ago. So it's taken me a long time to get you here, but I appreciate you joining us and taking the time to do this. He's also a good friend outside of the podcast, helped me with a lot of different things to bounce ideas off of, and plays chess with me.
Okay.
Beats me at chess generally.
What's our record right now?
I think you're up.
I think we're pretty close.
Yeah, but you beat me. Yeah, you got a much higher rating than me as well. Also a good pickleball player.
All right.
So a good all-round guy. And I knew I was going to... Can I tell a little funny story?
Tell whatever you want.
Before I got to know Mark, I didn't know him at all. I came here as the president of the Raiders. You probably came here a few, maybe months before the stadium opened up.
We moved here full-time in 2019, but started coming here almost a decade ago,
So
January 16.
So it was probably like 2019, before the team came here and before the pandemic. And our PR team somehow invited Mark to a dinner here at Oscars.
Yeah.
But I had no idea who Mark was. So she gives us the list, and they do the seating. It was in Oscars. And I didn't know who he was, so they did the seating. And he ends up sitting with like some small local influencers. In fact, I think Jump Force Paul was sitting with Mark at that dinner. Anyway, you don't want to talk while you're. I remember that. You remember that? So anyway, Mark ends up sitting at this dinner with some smaller influencers. Doesn't say anything. Sits through the dinner, and then halfway through dinner, the PR girl comes to me and says, "Hey, why'd you put the president of the Raiders not with you and Oscar?" And I said, "Who's the president?" He's here, and he shows me sitting over there. And I go, "Oh my God, you could have told me that." So I say, "I'm so sorry." He was having the time of his life. He loved the dinner. He was talking to everyone. He got to, am I right?
Yeah, my wife is still a follower of most of those food influencers. A couple of them are really taken off here in town.
They have to. Exactly. So anyway, thank you for being a good guy and making such a difference to the community and bringing all these great, well, we're going to talk about what you're doing now.
Sure.
But making the Raiders happen here, and appreciate you.
Thanks, Jonathan.
Yeah, so if you could just kind of give us a little bit of backstory. How did you get into sports to begin with?
Nepotism.
Okay.
You know, the old-fashioned way. My grandfather was a high school teacher. He was a gym teacher in Brooklyn, New York. And back in those days, Brooklyn was sort of a hub for high school athletics. So he coached at a school called Erasmus High School. And they had a lot of famous alumni in sports. Doug Moe coached the Nuggets. Billy Cunningham, he coached Miami and Sixers. Sam Rutigliano coached the Browns, but his most famous was Al Davis, owner of the Raiders. So my grandfather always instilled in us the fandom of the Raiders. We grew up in upstate New York, but we were always fans. And this was back in the 70s and 80s when the Raiders were the best team in football over a 20, 30-year period. So when I was 17, my grandpa passed away. Mr. Davis gave a eulogy at his funeral. And I had met him once or twice before. I went up, reintroduced myself, and he gives me his business card. And he says, if you want to work training camp, we hire interns that are in college. So in a couple of years, when you're a little older, get in touch with me. I was 17 at the time. Okay. And he said, when you're older, reach out, and we'd love to have you come out to training camp. So that's a conversation you don't forget. And 4 years later, I wrote a letter. A couple weeks after I wrote that letter, I actually got a phone call from a woman named Cheryl Nichols. A little sidebar. Sadly, Cheryl unfortunately passed away on Friday. Cheryl was with the organization for almost 50 years, was sort of like an extra mom to me and to a lot of people at the organization.
The Raiders.
At the Raiders. Yeah, took very good care of everybody in that organization, very close with the Davis family, and sadly passed last week. So condolences to her son Mark and daughter Kimmy, and she was wonderful. And she reached out and left a message on my machine and said, "We'd love to have you at training camp, be here by July 1st." So drove out to Los Angeles at the time when the Raiders were in LA, did a summer internship, and it progressed from there.
So you're literally the story of the guy who started as an intern and worked his way up to president.
There's a lot of people in sports like that, but yes, I am one of those guys. Yeah, absolutely.
It's easy.
There's a lot of that in baseball. I'm starting to find out people that have been there 20, 30, 35 years. But yeah, if you can find the right opportunity and work pretty hard, there's certainly room for advancement. And I was very fortunate. I had a lot of fortuitous timing. I had a lot of good people looking out for me when I started with the organization. And it was a good career, fun career.
Was it, and I've lived this, so I can ask the question, because that conversation you had is very similar to my sort of trajectory of how I ended up here. But was anyone who ever felt like you only got to where you were because of your grandfather's relationship or anything like that? Because I assume you worked hard as an intern and worked your way up to the company.
I don't think so. I mean, obviously there were a lot of people in the organization that had ties to the Davis family or to other people. Like any industry, if there's an opportunity, sometimes you go with the people that you know. But I started as a training camp intern, and then full-time we had a football building and an administration building, and I answered the phones in the football building and drove players to the doctor and did coaches' administrative work. This is the early 90s, and I would say the break really came, the salary cap came out. I don't know if you're old enough to remember when the salary cap came out.
For the NFL.
This was for the NFL. This is 1993. So prior to that, there wasn't as much parity. The economic model was very different. The salary cap came out in 1993, and a gentleman that I was ultimately became very close with, Tom Blanda, who also did 30 years with the Raiders. He created a depth chart using the salary cap data, but he didn't really have time to update it every day and every week. So he asked me to do essentially analytics. We didn't call it analytics back then, but that's essentially what it was. And you would download all the information about player contracts. And this is, again, 33 years ago. So the model was very different, and getting the data was very different. It took probably 10 hours just to download all the information to then try and analyze. But it gave me an opportunity to understand the business of football and how teams valued players, how they structured contracts. And so when you watched the evolution of roster management and player compensation from the onset of the salary cap, you got a really good understanding of the underlying business, and that opened up some opportunities for me.
I have to ask, so back in the early 90s, there wasn't as much coverage on football as there is today when it comes to contracts, when it comes to all the, the inside baseball, so to speak, with the NFL. Was it easier to deal with contracts and players then versus like the modern age where, we got like 4 star players that are sitting out or holding in, holding out right now?
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah. The original contracts were very simple. There weren't a lot of elements attached to it. It got infinitely more complex over time. One of the reasons there was a lockout in 2010 was the rookie contracts had gotten so wildly out of control. That was one of the things that I think everybody wanted to fix, both the players union and the teams and the league. It just didn't make sense that first-round picks were getting paid more than the best player.
Sam Bradford got a...
Yeah, there's a lot of examples.
Why you got to pick on him?
He was the last one that got a fully guaranteed deal.
One good example of that is in 1993, the highest paid players were always the quarterbacks. But if you looked at position, the lowest paid players were offensive linemen. And as soon as free agency hit, that flipped. And players who were good offensive linemen or even backups on some teams that had depth at offensive line were getting these monster contracts. And people in the media, like you said, there wasn't that much coverage of contracts. People in the media were saying, why are all these offensive linemen getting paid? And when you talk to coaches and people who understood the game, you said, the quarterback's the most important person on the field. I got to keep that person healthy. And so you saw that flip, and you saw offensive linemen start to get paid more and more. And I believe now they're probably the 3rd highest paid position group.
Wow.
So just to see that the market dynamic shift once that market opened up was very interesting.
So the obviously that created an opportunity for you, but I presume becoming the president of a massive organization like that, plus didn't the team move were you president when they moved from LA to Oakland?
No, I was working as accounts payable.
Okay.
And the team moved from Los Angeles to Oakland, but I was involved. We created a task force and a group that was partially responsible for the move to Oakland, both from an operations standpoint and sales standpoint. So I was fortunate to be part of that and get some exposure at a young age. The president job really opened up in 2013 on an intern basis, and then full-time about 16 months later. And when you work in sports, if you're not on the team side, if you're not a coach or a scout or involved in the day-to-day operations, and I get asked a lot, people who want to be involved in sports, I say go to a team that's going to do a stadium project or an arena project. Okay. And obviously it's fun being in that industry, but when you get to be a part of something transformational like that, you learn a lot, and you just have an incredible experience, both for yourself and for all the people that you work with and work for you, doing something like that. And obviously the Allegiant Stadium project was transformational, not just for the Raiders, but for Las Vegas.
Was that in the works in 2013 when you became?
The Raiders had been looking at trying to solve their stadium dilemma for a while. The way NFL economics work is there's national revenues that everybody shares, and then there's local revenues that teams generate from their stadium situation. And unfortunately, the deal that relocated the Raiders from Los Angeles to Oakland was flawed, and resulted in some economic hardship for the team. So starting as far back as the early to mid-2000s, we all sort of realized we're going to have to solve this at some point. All these other teams were getting stadiums. The Raiders were falling further and further down the revenue rankings. So we started looking mostly in the Bay Area. A couple of other markets appealed to us, but there was never really any plan to go anywhere else.
Right.
And then those efforts failed around 2014. And the next year, the Raiders and Chargers teamed up for a project in Carson, California, in Southern California. So that was when the league was looking to relocate a team and/or teams to LA. So Stan Kroenke and Kevin Demoff and the Rams put together the deal that ultimately became SoFi. The Raiders and Chargers, the Davis and Spanos families, partnered to try and do a project in Carson. And ultimately, the league voted for the SoFi project. This was in January of 16. What was good about it is, as a group, our team, all the team of people that worked on this project and ultimately were responsible for Allegiant, got essentially a crash course in how to build a stadium. So I learned municipal politics, league politics, sales, marketing, construction, everything that you needed to learn in order to build a stadium. We sort of crammed into 12 months. And then the vote approved the Rams to go. And Vegas sort of fell into the Raiders' lap. It was ultimately an introduction from Napoleon McCallum. I'm sure you know Napoleon. He works for the Sands Corp. Okay. And Napoleon was a former Raider. And at the time, there was some desire here locally to find a solution for UNLV. And Napoleon reached out to Mark and said, would the Raiders be interested in talking about moving to Vegas? 2 weeks later, we're in a conference room with Sheldon Adelson and Rob Goldstein and Andy Aboud. And a couple weeks after that, we're shaking hands with Governor Sandoval. And 6 or 7 months after that, there's $750 million worth of public funding. Thank you very much for your room tax. And a couple months after that, league approval. It happened so quickly.
Fast. Wow.
And it showed what this community can do when it gets behind something.
Yeah.
In terms of working together and working for the collective good of Southern Nevada and Las Vegas.
Have you done a lot of podcasts?
No. I've done a few.
You're incredible. I was going to say if you
don't have to pour flat.
No, but I was going to say
I already got you.
I was going to say if you yes, we'll talk about the merch in a second. I was going to say if you could, I know it's a tough question, but if you could just cliff notes, how did the Raiders get you? And you just did it without me asking you in about a minute. And
yeah, you
perfect.
went right through the agenda.
Are we done?
That was pretty unbelievable. But
look, it was a talented team of people, and not just people at the Raiders, but you heard me mention Tom Blanda, Mark Shearer, Brandon Dahl, just a lot of people that sacrificed a lot of time and a lot of their lives to get that project built for the Davis family, and it's something that all those folks are very proud of. And then you mentioned Mr. Adelson and Governor Sandoval, Governor Sisolak. There were just Steve Hill. You could sit here for an hour and list all the people who were responsible for that project happening, right? Success has 1,000 fathers and failure's an orphan.
There it is.
So there's a lot of people that should take credit and should take pride in that project and what it's done for the franchise and what it's done for this market. From a timing standpoint, what it means for the franchise I'm working for now, for the Athletics, they were smart enough to recognize what this market could do for the brand, for the franchise. And this market was smart enough to recognize that sports makes a difference.
For sure. And some people think that Las Vegas has gone overkill on sports in terms of the LVCVA, especially now there's a lot of talk about a slowdown and Vegas struggling, which I think is overblown entirely. In fact, I've started a whole campaign, I don't know if you know this, but on my social media with hashtag Vegas isn't dead, because I'm so sick of influencers doing these videos saying Vegas is dead, and it's just not dead. It might be slower. It's definitely slower. It's definitely worse than last summer in terms of occupancy. It's not dead. Just because, the trees don't grow to the sky expression. So we've had record summers after record summer. Okay, it's a slightly down one, but it's not dead. Anyway.
But everybody picks up on that. Like, there are all these social media posts and everything about Vegas is overpriced and this and that. And I think that detracts tourists from coming, right? And, I think you can compare that to the A's, right? I mean, there's a lot of videos out there when they were in Oakland in 23, 24 with 2,500 people in the stadium. Mm-hmm. It gives people a reason not to go. If they see an empty stadium, they don't feel the excitement and things like that. I think that a lot of that social media has a negative influence when people just experience it for themselves. I think it's the same with Vegas.
We're going to come to the A's entirely in a second. But I did want to ask you a little bit about on the Raiders. I guess it does relate to the A's. Coming from England, it's entirely foreign to me that a team can leave its local market because the fan base owns the team. Yes, there's an owner, but the fan base is the team, and they're loyal, and they're born loving it. And who are the Raiders? Are they from LA? Are they from Oakland? And how does the fan base play into moving a team? Whether it's the A's, the Raiders, and I guess it's happened so many times here in America.
Yeah, the Raiders
teams
just
can move. Yeah. It's just so foreign because you can't pick up Manchester United and move it. It'd be insane.
It's an interesting question. I'm not really sure what the question was, but I'll try and
Well, how much
address
does the fan base play into that decision when these owners can just say, yeah, I'm not even saying a team that was born in, I guess the Raiders weren't from Oakland, so they're from LA?
No, the Raiders started in Oakland.
Oh, so Oakland,
franchises have moved for decades.
Okay.
And unfortunately, it's economic driven.
Yeah.
When you look at the economics of the sports changing, or you look at the economics of a city or a region changing, and can it really support a team anymore? The challenge we had in Oakland was we were in a facility that was shared. Both the Raiders and A's, ironically, were sharing a facility, and it wasn't suitable for either. And it started to fall apart and fall behind what other stadiums in both sports were generating for the other teams. And at some point, when you own a business, you have to at least look at how that's going to impact the product. And in football, there's a lot more of a revenue sharing model. So you can't really go out of business, but the Raiders were falling further and further down the revenue rankings till they were last. And Mark, to his credit, was willing to do a deal to stay in Oakland that would have involved selling a significant portion of his holdings, not the entire team's holdings, but Mark's personal holdings. He was willing to sell at a discount to somebody who could help fill the gap to build a stadium in Oakland. Ultimately, again, I'll say it, we failed. And I don't mean other people. I mean we collectively, the city, the county, the Raiders, myself, Mark, we failed to get a deal done there. And so you had to look at what opportunities were out there that could improve the team's fortunes. And that's what happens in a lot of leagues and a lot of locations. And sometimes it's deal driven, and sometimes it's franchise driven, and sometimes it's performance driven. And it is very different than the European model, but it's nothing new. Franchises have been moving for 100 plus years. The Raiders started in Oakland, moved to Los Angeles for a little over a decade, moved back to Oakland, and then moved to Vegas. What's amazing about the Raiders is, you heard me talk about it earlier, is the team was so dominant for about a 25-year period. Ultimately, they had the best record in professional sports. And they also, this is when football started to explode, and Monday Night Football was the television show to watch. The Raiders, I believe, at one point were 19-1-1 on Monday Night Football. So you just developed not just a local fan base in California, but you developed this national and global fan base. And they were also one of the first teams with an identity and a brand in the silver and black colors. And that power sort of captivated a lot of people and created generations of fans. And so the proximity of Las Vegas to California, where that fan base is, was obviously something we took into consideration when looking to move here.
And this might be a little off, but the quality of what the team is with playoffs, with the records, does that factor into a move of that degree? Like if it's
a winning team, is it less likely they move?
Yeah, I mean, if you have a team, I mean, pretty much outside of 1 year, the Raiders weren't really relevant since about 2002 when they went to the Super Bowl. So, I mean, had they not had those years of success or the failure?
It's just a hypothetical. It's hard to answer.
Yeah.
There have been teams that have been very successful in all sports that have had to relocate. There have been teams that haven't been that successful on the field or the court, and those have had to relocate as well. I wouldn't say one definitely dictates the other. Obviously, if you have a sustained period of success, it's probably a lot harder to damage the economic situation. You're probably going to do very well. So there's probably some corollary, but I wouldn't say it's exact.
Did you say Raiders dropped to last in the ratings?
In terms of revenue generation, when they were,
And now in Vegas,
third or second, yeah, 32 to 3, 32 to 2.
That's a pretty amazing.
Not
jump.
bad.
That speaks to the Vegas brand and the power, which maybe speaks against my point of Vegas is doing it on the sports with F1 and all the other.
Do you believe that? I don't believe that.
It's not that is it coming up? So I think like Vegas used to talk about what happens here stays here.
Mm-hmm.
That was the tagline. You don't hear that general consensus about Vegas when the LVCVA goes out now. They talk about what a great town it is for events and sports, which is true. But the overall branding of the city, the what happens here stays here, you haven't heard a tagline like that in probably 10 years, which has coincided with the rise of sports. So now when they're out there, they're saying F1's happening, Raiders are happening, Golden Knights happening, A's are happening. And I wonder if that detracts from, let's say, the summer now where we don't have sports happening.
We will soon.
We will soon, but is that a reason for the for maybe less of that summer business? I'm not sure. I'm not 100% sure, but I do know that there's a tremendous amount of effort and money behind sports.
It certainly worked. It's brought a lot of visitation.
Sure.
And it's not just sports. It's pieces of infrastructure that are bringing large-scale events to town, and this is an event-driven town.
Correct.
So when you look at what Allegiant has done in terms of number of events, and you look at what the ballpark that we're building is going to do in terms of bringing new events and new bodies to Las Vegas, that's an economic positive for this market. You've been here longer than me. The Pac-12 was probably the first example of what they call the Vegas multiplier, the Vegas effect. They brought their basketball tournament here, and they just saw an explosion in terms of all their metrics, their attendance, their revenue, their sponsorship activation, their sponsorship satisfaction, the exposure. And then the Knights came here, then the Raiders came here, the Aces came here, and you just saw this city. One of the lines we've used is you reach an international destination in a domestic market, and you reach 40 million plus people a year. There's just not that many cities that do it. And the other cities that do it are certainly not concentrated in the area, the economic engine that is the Strip and downtown.
No, I'm not saying it for sure. It's just an interesting subject.
Well, you're listening to all those bloggers. They're subliminally getting in your head.
Well, maybe a little bit. Okay, so all of those bloggers and myself do all want to talk A's. But I think Mark gave me an interesting idea that I might introduce to this podcast.
Go for it.
Mark, out of his own wallet, went and bought himself a Lucky Bucks shirt.
Okay.
To come in on the podcast.
It's a side jersey, right?
It's a side jersey. Every jersey is signed in the box. And I think as part of our podcast experience, you might have just created a new segment.
Yeah.
In between subjects, around halfway through, we're going to have our guest. Usually we'll be providing it, but you went and did it yourself. Open a.
So that hasn't been opened. It's still not open. Okay.
Let me give you the genesis of it.
Yeah, sure.
A gentleman that I worked with for a number of years. His name's Keegan McDonald. He works for Oakview Group. Prior to joining the Athletics, I was working on a basketball arena, to your point about not enough sports in town. And he loves coming here, both for work and for pleasure. And he loves coming to your property, and this is one of the things he loves to do.
That's great.
So I told him I was coming on this podcast. He listens every week that it's out. And I think last week he was here. He got a Saquon Barkley jersey, which he was very excited about.
You're excited with that.
Absolutely.
And then the prior one to that was a Malik Monk jersey. He's not as excited about them. No offense to him. No, he was more excited about the Saquon.
Yeah.
So I told him I would get one when I came down.
I'm going to give you one to go home with as well. You got to take the sticker off. That's a great story, though. And we're going to ask you where the NBA is going next.
I'll give you my best answer.
Well, that's why.
Yeah.
Looks very baseballish.
Does look baseballist.
Then open it.
No, that's what I was going to give you your certificate of authenticity on the floor. He's got it over there. I don't want to.
Braves? Angels?
Gary Sheffield.
Gary Sheffield. Oh, yeah, he's great. That's a really good one.
Okay.
I'm
going to get you one downstairs as well.
Okay.
Well, thank you for the Lucky Bucks segment.
Yeah.
There you go.
My nephew Cameron is a huge Angels fan, so I'll probably send that to him.
Angels or you said Cleveland?
No, this is A-Town.
Oh. Okay, fine.
You really need to learn
I
a little bit
didn't
more
know,
about
but,
sports, don't you?
I'm doing better. I'm doing okay. Good. I mean, because I never.
Are there your football jerseys in there, or are these all American sports?
These are all American sports, yeah. There might be some soccer in there.
I think there's a couple soccer. Yeah.
But I've seen mostly baseball. A lot of Ronald Acuna I've seen, Tatis I've seen. I've seen some good ones. It's a cool machine. I'm glad your friend enjoys it, and thank you for listening.
Absolutely.
So, so the A's.
Yeah.
I came to the groundbreaking ceremony, and thank you for the hats. We got beautiful sweaters, by the way.
Thank you very much.
Much, Mark. I like your polo shirt. That's a good golf shirt. So I came to the groundbreaking. I loved it. I was very impressed, very proud of you and what you're doing there. And candidly, I'd read all the stories about people saying it's not going to happen, it's not going to happen. I was a skeptic. And then you went to the A's, and I think the world of you. So I was like, okay, well, he's very credible. I believe it's happening. I was 100% on board. Then I come to the groundbreaking, and I put on Twitter, this is happening. And I got a bunch of crazy people. Well, it's crazy, I guess, but maybe they're crazy. But a lot of anger about my post, and it's not happening. And why would you say that? And I guess the first question for you is, why is there so much doubt and negativity about something that should be an incredibly exciting thing for the city?
I wouldn't call them crazy. I'd call them passionate. And we saw the same types of things when we were relocating the Raiders. You're talking about a passionate fan base that's followed the team for decades and is hurt and is upset. And you can't feel anything other than sympathy and understanding when you lose a team. It's hard. It's hard on that community. It's hard on the fan base. And
Especially since they lost another team 5 years before that.
Absolutely. And you'd be insensitive to say otherwise. So that passion can sometimes turn a little bit ugly on social media. It's probably best to tune it out. But I can understand it, and I feel sorry for the fans that have been with both the Raiders and A's for years and feel bad that the team had to relocate. But the same type of activity was happening even while Allegiant Stadium was coming out of the ground, and there's probably still people on Twitter saying that the Raiders are going to move back to Oakland. I mean, it's just there's something you can't really stop that part of society that's just going to be a forever skeptic and forever doubt what turned out to be a successful move, and the A's fans are still very hurt by it. So it's not surprising, and it's just something that we're going to have to do to build that fan base here and to make it up to the fan base the best way we can. There'll be plenty of people who will never forgive us, and we understand that, but it's certainly not an insensitive relationship between your fan base. You have to be sensitive to the fact that they're losing something that's very important to them.
That's fair. And then what about the doubt? Why do so many people think it's not going to happen? Typically, you announce something, you do a groundbreaking, it's happening. How is there still a level of doubt so far into a project?
It depends who you're listening to. I don't have any doubt. We go to work every day. We've spent a lot of money and a lot of time, and there's a project team of hundreds, almost thousands of people involved in this project, both locally and architecture firms in Kansas City and construction firms that are here and all the people that we're hiring and bringing on board. So I'm sorry to the skeptics, but it is happening.
I guess that's a very fair point. Depends, it's Vegas dead. Depends.
You have to understand your perspective, right?
Yeah.
The groundbreaking was great. I thought it was about the kids. John was very emphatic. He said, I would like this to be about the youth and about the kids. So saw the little...
Shout out, thank you for reminding me. Shout out to my friends, Fred and Megan Mosler, whose son plays for the Summerlin Baseball League, minor league, and are now winning in the World Series. They just won.
They won 3 games in a row.
Yeah.
So they're one game away from the U.S. championship.
Yeah. Banks Mosler is a batter on the team, so shout out to them. And you're right, they were... The A's did do a post.
Right. And the kids that were up there were magnificent. You were there. They were the best, no offense to the governor and the other municipal speakers, but they were magnificent. I kept looking over my shoulder thinking they were reading from a teleprompter, and they were all just terrific. They were great presenters and great speakers and eloquent, and John was right. It was about the kids, and it was a really wonderful event and a good way to kick off that project, and you're going to see a lot more excitement over the next couple months as the project comes out of the ground and goes vertical, and you'll see the stair cores and the frame of that beautiful building come out of the ground on the corner at Chop and Las Vegas Boulevard.
So if I can ask you some of the specific things that I have read or questioned. Some people say it's too small at 9 acres. Is that as a as the president, is that true? It fits on 9 acres, I presume.
It fits on 9 acres.
You wouldn't be building it.
Correct. There'll be adjacent development. It just won't be A's generated development. It'll be part of a partnership with Bally's and GLPI, but the ballpark fits on the 9 acres. It is a small building, and that was by design and on purpose, and it's going to be fantastic. It's going to have the most intimate sight lines throughout the ballpark, and I think it's going to be a great experience for everybody that goes.
33,000 seats?
33,000. 30,000 fixed, 3,000 standing room only, SROs.
And I do know there's 80 games in baseball in a year?
There are
80 home games, 81 home games.
Correct.
Any questions about filling 81 times 30,000 home games a year? Shouldn't be, right?
That's on our organization. That's on the talented group of people to create an experience that makes people want to come. One of the lines we've been using is treat every day like opening day, and make sure every game is exciting and that there's entertainment and that there's a reason to come.
Yeah.
We'll probably have more unique attendees than any other stadium, right? If you go to Yankee Stadium, there are probably a lot of people who go to 10, 20, 30 games a year. We'll see some of that. We'll see some of that from the local fan base, but we know we're going to get a lot of visitation, and we're going to get a lot of visitors and a lot of people who are trying the stadium for the first time. And it's on us to put a really good show out there, right? You've seen it with the Raider games, you've seen it with the Aces game, you've seen it with the Knights game. And that's what Vegas is about.
Right. Sounds to me, Sarah, a little bit like day one energy. I preach to Sarah day one energy. Sounds like you're telling them.
I might steal that one too.
Day one energy, baby. Okay, and what about, you mentioned Bally's and GLP, but do we know what's coming next to it? Like, could I open a hotel casino there? What's happening next to the stadium?
That's not for me to disclose.
Okay.
We'll say that they have a very talented team of architects and builders and planners working on their plan, and when they're ready to release what they're going to build, they'll get that.
At their buildings.
There. Yep.
And that, presumably, you don't want that being built while you're open, so they should go together.
The goal is for most of that to be simultaneous, yes, correct.
Okay. What about the budget? It's $2 billion for the stadium?
You heard John say that in the paper the other day. It's approaching that, yes.
Okay. And
How does a stadium get funded? Generally, I mean, is it different between all different types of franchises and different organizations on how that is split between what maybe city, county, between the team?
If there's a public-private partnership, there's a public aspect to it, which may be a sales tax, it may be a use tax, it may be a tourist tax. In the example of Allegiant Stadium, it was a room tax that was added to bond for the $750 million public contribution. For the Athletics Stadium, it is a combination of 3 different taxes. One's called a TIF tax, tax increment financing, so the taxes generated on the site are then given back to the project. There's some tax credits, and then there's some infrastructure taxes that are infrastructure contributions that make up the public stack. And then depending on the ownership group, there's a debt stack to the project and an equity stack to the project. John and his family are putting in a very substantial amount of equity into this project, and that's how it gets funded.
Okay.
You know, by the way, I think a lot of, and maybe you can educate me on this a little bit, but I understand when people say, oh, well, you shouldn't use public money to fund stadiums for wealthy people, but isn't the argument against that the stadium generates a lot more future income for the city that they're going into? Like, if you look at Las Vegas, the public money was spent, but look at the value that it's generated for more public money in the future.
I don't know the exact numbers. I was on a panel with Steve Hill the other day, and he knows the statistics better than I do. But I believe for every dollar that was put in for Allegiant Stadium, I think something like $4 has come back into the market. And the estimates are very similar for what's going into the athletics ballpark and what will come out of it in terms of economic return via visitation, via additional hotel room nights. There's also a non-quantifiable aspect to this, right? So you can put it on a spreadsheet and say, here's how much it's costing the municipality or the citizens or the tourists that come to town, and here's how much revenue that's going to generate. But then there's also what it means to a community to have a sports team. You were here when the tragedy happened 8 years ago, and you saw how the Knights helped galvanize this community. There's the exposure that having a team provides a municipality. So I've told this story before, but we're going to hear it again. When we were looking at the stadium opportunities in the Bay Area for the Raiders, we hired a firm to say, how much would it be worth if the name of the team were sold to a company instead of a city? So the Plaza Athletics, how much would that be worth? Well, for the NFL in the Bay Area, and it's mostly driven by eyeballs on television and large mediums, it was $75 million a year in exposure dollars. Now, that's not to say a company's going to pay $75 million, but take it as a factor of 10, it's $7.5 million. That's the type of exposure you get from having your city's name, abbreviation on TV all that time, anytime there's a byline, all that. And then we looked at it in Las Vegas, and it was 50% higher. It was $110 million. This was 10 years ago. So I don't know what that number is now, but it's got to be higher in terms of global reach. And every time you watch a sporting event that happens in Vegas, this goes back to when we were kids and you watched boxing and Caesars and they had the flyover of Las Vegas. That's worth something, right? That's valuable. That actually matters. The LVCVA pays money to play their commercials. In a lot of sports and entertainment programming to attract people there, they're getting it for free. Not for free, but you know what I mean. Right. They're getting that exposure for free every time there's that flyover of the market. So what dollar amount do you put on that? It's something. And there's a lot of skeptics out there, and there's a lot of people who've made it their industry to be skeptical of any public-private partnership without necessarily looking at some of the things that, again, are not going to be purely quantifiable.
Okay. So before we move on to the team and some of the other stuff you're working on, just to close the loop, you say the stadium opens in 2028, still happens. No,
on time.
You're on schedule, and you're not worried about the $2 billion budget. Like, what happens with global economies, like tariffs? Does any of that have an impact on you?
Included in that number is a contingency for tariffs.
Okay.
So, no, I'm not worried about it. You can keep asking, but
no, you're the company. But this is what I tell people because I believe you. But I'm just saying the question I was told to ask is like, is there the money to build the stadium? And it sounds like
there is.
Yes.
Were there any hiccups with Allegiant Stadium? Because that opened in September.
Global pandemic, you have to.
Right. Besides that, thanks for the reminder.
Probably 90%, 95% of the way done by the time March hit 2020, right?
Oh yeah, he's right.
Was it?
Yeah, we opened in June of 2020, and pandemic hit in March.
Oh, because the first season was behind closed doors.
Yeah.
No fans.
Never had that, I remember.
No fans. Sure, you're always going to have challenges with this type of project. You're always going to have issues that you're not thinking of. You're always going to have the uncertainty. A global pandemic, sort of a black swan event, is not something you expect. Fortunately, there was a lot of success in the sales process leading into the opening of Allegiant Stadium, so that provided a little bit of a cushion. And the NFL did a very good job of navigating through some very uncertain waters in terms of providing some support for all 32 teams.
Yeah.
But yeah, of course, it's like having a wedding, right? Something's gonna go wrong. Yeah. You just have to be ready for it, and you have to be adaptable, and you have to have a group of people that have done it before. The entire group of people that are working on the athletics ballpark, 90% of them worked on Allegiant, so they understand the market and they understand all the players here in town.
I can tell you a trick for your wedding so that there's nothing goes wrong.
Well, I'm not going to have another wedding, but thank you.
For me, nothing went wrong because my wife organized everything, so I didn't know what was meant to be happening anyway, so I just showed up and it was perfect.
Well, you did a good job.
You put that all in her. you leave it to them.
My wife said to me this morning, "What are you doing today?" I said, "I'm going on Jonathan's podcast." She's like, "That Jonathan has a really nice way about him. He's very handsome." So you have a fan in Amy Badain.
I appreciate it. Thank you, Amy. I wanted to take her to the Backstreet Boys this week. She's been already. So why leave Oakland? What about the? I don't know that we talked about it. You did touch on it a little bit. Mm-hmm. I asked because I have a cousin who is the owner of the Oakland Bees, and they started a team there as a community team. I think it's not the minor league. It's like the Pioneer League.
Ballers. Yeah. Does that sound right?
Ballers. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. But it's not. But it's the league that's below. It's not like AAA, AA. I think it's a league,
like a semi-pro type of league.
Kind of. Yes. Yeah. And they've seen great community support because there's this void from the A's. Is it just the opportunity of Vegas is too big to turn down? You joined once the decision was already
I've been
made.
on the job about 5 months.
So you weren't there.
And I obviously followed it very closely. And when we shared a stadium, there were some back and forths. At times, they wanted to build a stadium for the A's. At times, they wanted to build a stadium for the Raiders. It flip-flopped back and forth. But there was never an economic deal that actually could happen. You talked about the skeptics in this market. There was a lot of skepticism there, and they were right to be skeptical. I can tell you that John and his family and the organization spent a lot of money trying to make it work. It's a substantial sum. So I know that effort was made. I know that he doesn't get credit for it. I know that there are people listening to this that are rolling their eyes right now, which is fine. But I know what the attempts were to make something happen there for a very long period of time, and they were similar to what Mark tried to do for a long period of time. So it wasn't a lack of effort. It was a failure of all the parties. And I think if you got any of the parties involved or put them on this podcast and put a microphone in their face, they'd be lying if they didn't say they had some culpability. But it wasn't from a lack of effort, and it wasn't from a lack of resources, and it wasn't from not spending money to try and make something happen.
That's great. And I mean, I appreciate what you're saying, but no matter what you do, you have detractors and people that roll their eyes. So
Absolutely.
So be it. Have you seen?
Do you know a lot of sports owners that are beloved by people universally? Can you name that many?
The only one that I sort of know, and he does seem to be, I probably am going to say something ridiculous, but Robert Kraft seems to be universally liked, but maybe I'm totally wrong.
I would say his fan base likes him a lot.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
That's the only one who have had the...
There's not a lot.
No.
There's not a lot.
That's true.
It's not a very... if you want to be popular, it's probably not... I mean, it's fun. You're going to enjoy it, but you're going to take a lot of scrutiny. You're going to take a lot of arrows, and you better have thick skin.
The Glazers own Manchester United, and they're probably the most hated ownership.
They're from my hometown of Rochester. I actually grew up with a couple of the kids.
Oh, really? They are really hated in Manchester.
Well, sorry to hear that.
No. What about, is there a part of moving to Vegas that's so attractive to all sports teams because the casinos get behind? I know you did an event the other night. You sent me a picture of my fireworks over at the pool at Circa, and you did an A's game over at Circa. How supportive are the casinos in the process and buying suites, buying tickets, host of players? Is that a big part of the business?
It's certainly a part of it, absolutely. They didn't buy as many tickets as you would think in Allegiant. They did buy a lot of the suite product, and I'm sure they'll be very supportive of the Athletics ballpark as well. You really have a market here that has 4 or 5 different pools of people to attract to the games. You have your locals. You have also this group of people that have moved here to town over the last 5, 10, 20 years for tax reasons, for lifestyle reasons. And if they've moved here over some other parts of the country, it's probably because they like to do things. Right. And Vegas is a town where you can experience a lot. And so those folks have participated in most of the sports team product purchases. Then you have the resort corridor. And then you have the tourists that are coming that can be clients of either the individuals that own tickets or the resort corridor. And then you have a broker market. And you have probably the most robust broker market in all of sports in this town because of all the factors that I just mentioned. So there's a lot of opportunity here for sports teams, and there's a lot of opportunity here for events. And that's why this city keeps evolving and keeps creating things. And thing you mentioned, the Backstreet Boys. Look at the Sphere. The Sphere's a marvel.
It's a modern marvel.
It's a marvel.
It's incredible.
It's an incredible experience.
Yeah.
Every time you go there, I was joking that you could have Mitch McConnell read the phone book in the Sphere, and people would probably pay to go see it. And
You're right.
It's just there's nothing else like it.
Yeah.
And now that's 4 years old. And
Is it
this
4
city,
years old?
yeah, it opened right after in 2021, 2022 maybe. So maybe it's 3 years old. This city's great. This city's amazing. This city continues to evolve and impress and do things. You were talking about a slowdown. Absent, we'll just call it strange forces that sometimes impact this, whether they're economic or pandemic or other things like that. This town usually bounces back pretty strongly. So
I'm not worried at all about this town. This town is rock solid. Yeah, it's a slower summer, but slower compared to what? It's a very...
Can't always break records.
That's correct. And I'm not worried at all about that. I do have a baseball question. Okay. Maybe this is the way I understand it is typically a traveling team plays 3 to 5 games on the road. It's like
3 or 4.
3 or 4. So like, let's say Boston's coming to play the Athletics here in Vegas. They'll play 3 to 4 games in a row, generally day after day after day. So if you're from Boston, how great. You come to spend your summer or a day. It's a bit hot right now, but generally speaking, it's an indoor stadium, so you'll be okay. And you can stay on the strip, walk to the stadium, watch a game for 3 to 4 days. Where else in the world is better than Vegas to do that? And that's walkable to the stadium like that.
Absolutely. The location's great. And that's part of the experience and part of the reasons why the Athletics looked at this market, and part of the reason that the municipality here decided to do a public-private partnership is for exactly that reason. But it's also one element that you can come to town and it's 2 to 3 hours. It's not 10 hours. It's not an entire day. So you can do other things while you're in town and take in a ball game as well. And you mentioned earlier in the podcast, we don't have a lot of sports in the summer. You have the Aces, and now you'll have baseball to complement that and be a part of the calendar and bring people to town. The schedule is usually 6 or 7 games at home, 6 or 7 games on the road.
Right.
Usually you're gone for a week, home for a week, gone for a week. Occasionally you might have a 2-week stretch or 10-game stretch, but baseball's pretty good about their scheduling and making sure you're not on the road for 2 straight weeks.
And what else do you see happening in the stadium besides baseball?
But I can imagine a lot of things, including concerts, including other sporting events, including private events, conventions. I also think what you're going to see is some large-scale weekends where Vegas works together and utilizes all of the venues. So you saw a little bit of that. Yeah, you saw a little bit of that with WrestleMania. You saw events both at Allegiant and at T-Mobile. And so you had a 3 or 4 day sports and wrestling festival. So why couldn't you do that with music at a bunch of different events, bunch of different venues? Or why couldn't you do that with different sports, right? We're home to UFC and TKO. They now have UFC, they have WWE, they're getting into boxing. So you do an entire sports weekend in all these different facilities and create these super weekends here in town. And that's not an original idea. That idea has been promoted by a lot of people, including the LVCVA. And so now you have this other piece of infrastructure right on the Strip that can allow for more events. And our building is 30,000, so it sits right in a nice sweet spot between the arenas that are here and Allegiant, and can do some different style and different types of events.
Yeah, I think if you look at maybe 3 years ago, Bad Bunny did an event at Allegiant for 70,000, and then when he came back, he only did T-Mobile for like 17,000.
Oh, really?
If there was a market for somewhere in the middle at 33, 35,000, the A's ballpark would be perfect for it. Yeah.
Is Thomas and Mack the same? How big is that? That's more like T-Mobile, right?
T-Mobile, 18, 20,000. T-Mobile's around that, and Jim Grand's a little smaller.
I feel like they could sell more tickets to the NFL.
If they could just move it to the A's ballpark.
Well, don't you need to have seats all the way around, though? Because in baseball, you don't have that, or are you going to?
No, you have seats all the way around. Then you have some floor seating as well. You can do a lot of things with temporary seating as well.
That's also true. Is there anything else on the A's we should be, or you want to tell us?
We'll be opening an experience center over at the Uncommons.
Okay.
We're currently under construction. I would say it'll be ready in the next 6 to 8 weeks. There'll be some really fun experiential things for fans to come in. I don't want to spoil it. I'll just say that both adults and kids will enjoy coming in there, seeing different parts of the A's history, some different ways to see the ballpark, models of the ballpark.
Where in the Uncommons is it?
We're in the building closest to the freeway. So if you know where general admission is, you keep walking a little further to the east, and you'll see it. We'll have signage up. You'll be able to find it. We have a deposit campaign going on for season ticket holders, future season ticket holders. You just go to A's Ballpark Experience, or just go to our website. You can
count us in.
It's
got some casinos.
What's exciting is, I would say 90% of the people on the deposit list are Clark County addresses, which shows that the locals are behind it, which is going to be great.
That's fantastic. So we don't want to take you up your whole day, and I appreciate you taking the time to do this, but in between the Raiders and the A's, you had a short stint doing the NBA stadium planning, and I guess there was a time where you were looking at the South Strip, then you were looking at other locations. One, why are you so good at sports teams and stadiums? And two, where is the NBA going?
I guess I don't know how to answer either of those questions. I get a lot of credit for Allegiant Stadium, and I will defer that credit to some of the names you heard me say before, and a lot of other people who were part of that team, and was fortunate to have an opportunity with Oakview Group with Tim Lewicki. You heard me mention Keegan before, and some really talented people that have built multiple venues all over the world. They just opened one in Manchester. And obviously my prowess and my network and my ability was here in Las Vegas, and learning this market. As you know, it's a tight community, and if you're a part of it, you're a part of it, and if you're not, you're not. So the success of Allegiant and how we brought the team here provided some opportunities for me. So when Tim wanted to look at building an arena here, whether it was going to be for the NBA or not, it made a lot of sense to work on that project. And the same with the Athletics. They were looking at where they were in the ballpark life cycle and said we could use somebody that has the experience in this market to assist us with this project. And that's when John Fisher and Sandy Dean reached out. So I'm the beneficiary of a lot of other people making me look really, really good. And I'm a real fan of this community. I've grown to really love it. Like I said, I've been here about 10 years, developed some absolutely wonderful friendships that I think will last the rest of my life and my wife's life. And if I can do something for this community, I will. The NBA, I don't know what the NBA is going to do. It went back and forth a lot over those 3 years in terms of locations, in terms of information, in terms of what we were hearing coming out of the league office. But that's up to 30 owners who own those 30 teams.
It's an expansion team or a...
I would assume so. Yeah, I would assume so.
And you were helping, after the South Strip deal, you were looking at the Rio site.
Look at the Rios.
Because everyone knows the Rio was that he's working on that.
I heard Patrick last week. He was great on the podcast.
That's right. Patrick
Yep.
Miller was on that.
It's a great piece of property, and the acreage that he's talking about is ripe for some sort of development. I don't know what they'll put there, but you have incredible visibility to Strip. You have connectivity with that Twain underpass to Caesars and Forum Shops and the future Hard Rock. So it's a really good location, and I have no doubt they'll come up with something successful.
And why does T-Mobile not work?
I wouldn't say T-Mobile doesn't work. That's not the right way to look at it. You have to go back to something we were talking about a while ago, which is the economics of the situation. First of all, no sports teams really like to share. We're all a little bit spoiled, and everybody wants their own venue, and everybody wants to control a venue. So you already have an existing team there, and T-Mobile was built, opened in 2016. So the idea for T-Mobile is now 13 and 14 years old. And it was built without an anchor tenant in mind. And it was built very economically. It was built for $375 million, which sounds like a lot, but I think they just spent $2 billion on the arena in Los Angeles for the Clippers. There's probably a happy medium somewhere between those numbers. But the building is not necessarily the state-of-the-art building. So if you're bringing an NBA team here, you're going to want your own building. That's not to say they won't end up there. That's not to say that the team of people that are in place here, obviously Bill Foley and his team have been as successful as any sports team owner in the last 50 years, launching an expansion team and winning. So if he wants to do something, I don't doubt that he can do it. But they're going to have to put some money into that venue and add some revenue-generating opportunities so that both teams, the Knights and if there's an expansion basketball team, can generate enough revenues.
If you go back and you look at any of the old Oakland Raiders games while the Athletics were still playing, when they converted the field, everything looked so much different, and there was different, the ground was different, like everything, it didn't look in place. So having their own separate entities usually works best. I did have one question in regards to sponsors. When in the process, since you've done this before, does like a big sponsor come in to take over the name of the ballpark and the licensing?
You mean any stadium, more specifically this ball?
Well, I'm asking for the 8th. I don't think they have a sponsor, but I know you were with Allegiant. Was it always Allegiant from the beginning?
No, we're having those conversations right now. We've had a number of very productive conversations with large international brands, so there's definitely interest. The Allegiant deal, I believe we signed about a year prior to opening, so summer of 19.
Okay.
It really is dependent on the market, on what company actually wants to put their name on the ballpark or the stadium, what's going on in the economy. There are examples of stadiums not having a name when they open and then later on adding it, right?
AT&T
Dallas
Stadium.
Cowboys Stadium for a couple of years before he sold it to AT&T, and then there are examples where the name changes. So I wouldn't say there's a one-size-fits-all, but there's a lot of interest. The companies that don't have a name on a ballpark or a stadium right now obviously have seen the success of this market and the success of naming Allegiant, what it's done for the airline and for the brand. And I think if you asked Maury Gallagher, he'd say he doesn't regret it for a second.
Plaza Hotel Ballpark. You ready for that? No.
Gotta grow it up.
We're going to have to sell a lot of jerseys.
Yeah, we're gonna sell some more vending machines, Lucky Bucks.
Yeah, there you go.
We're going, Gary.
So we ask all of our guests, as you know, thank you again for not just being on the podcast, but being a listener of the podcast. What's one piece of advice, whether it's career or life advice, you'd like to give to our listeners?
I could answer it diplomatically, or I could answer it in a way that I think is a little more impactful. And I guess I would say, don't screw over your friends for money. Don't screw over people that for a job or for a position or for greed or ego, both because while it may be a temporary fix and may make you feel good, everyone sees what you're doing, and everybody knows that reveals a part of your character that is pretty ugly. So that's probably what I'd say.
Well said.
Said nothing to add to that.
Yeah.
It's powerful. September 17th, next Oscars dinner series. We'd love to have you back here.
It's always fun coming to that.
Thank you, and appreciate your time and for.
Congrats on the podcast. I've been a listener for a while. I think they're great. You get some amazing guests, and I'm honored to be one of them. So thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you very much. Appreciate you.
Thanks, guys.
You a fan of On the Corner of Main Street? You're listening, so we'll assume that's a yes. So share the love, rate, review, and tell a friend to subscribe. Also, follow us on Twitter and Instagram @PlazaPod, on Facebook, Plaza Podcast, and feel free to write to the man himself @Jonathan Jossel. We'll see you next time, right here on the corner of Main Street.